Okay, so a quick run through the parameters which this tool uses. We start off with starting capital available. Now, this can be your own money or other people's money, but for practical purposes, in order to build a portfolio, you are going to need around about £100,000 to get started. And you can start lower, and when you get to play with the tool you can see the effects of using lower amounts of capital, and we'll demonstrate some of those in other videos. But yeah, the asking price, the open market value. These are values which aren't achievable all around the country, so you may well have to find, if it doesn't work in your area for the values which you've got, you may have to consider investing remotely, but that's basically where you use the services of a reliable, compliant sourcer. They can do everything for you. Purchase legal costs, we've put this in at 1%. It does vary, it depends again where you are in the country, but generally speaking they work out to be a percentage of the purchase price. Stamp duty, land tax, there are ways of avoiding this, but it's out of the scope of this tool, and we calculate that for you automatically. Values used in this version of the tool are those in force from April 2025. Sourcing fees. If you're using a sourcer, then your fees will vary. If you're an experienced investor and you've got your own power team, you can manage the whole process yourself, you just want help finding reasonable properties, then typical fee would be around £3,000 plus VAT. If you want completely hands off with the whole process being managed and overseen by your deal sourcer, then we charge £5,000 total for that. Other sourcers will have other charges. Light refurb costs, this is just intended to cover the cost of a lick of paint and maybe new carpets. We only look at light refurb costs because generally speaking we would source, our standard sourcing deal would be a property requiring light refurb. Heavy refurb is a different kettle of fish. You can of course put in more refurb costs if you want, totally up to you. The tool's entirely yours to do with as you wish, and then when you get your results you can always come back to us and see what we think. Refinance legal costs. Now the tool assumes that you're going to be investing on a momentum basis, so you're going to be taking money out of your increases in equity, using that to finance the next properties, so there will be legal costs associated with that refinancing, generally lower than the purchase legal costs because searches and etc and things like that, there aren't so many requirements, the job's already been done. The refinance period, now this is basically the minimum amount of time you want your finance to run before you can refinance. So you might find you're getting a very good deal on a 5-year fix, but that means unless you want to pay early repayment charges, then if you want to get money out of a property that's on a 5-year fixed mortgage in order to finance another property further down the road, you're not going to be able to do it until 5 years is up. So for our recommended model, we say stick with standard variable rate, and generally speaking you'll have no problems remortgaging a year after purchase. Remortgaging any earlier than a year after purchase is technically, according to some authorities, mortgage fraud, because a mortgage is intended to be a long-term loan, not short-term finance. Average annual capital growth this is what you're relying on to enable you to increase the value of your portfolio and to generate the equity growth to provide the deposits for increasing the size of your portfolio. We're showing 7.9% here because this is the average annual capital growth for the whole of the UK historically. Average discount achieved. Now discounts aren't always available, but we've put 10% in there. We'll talk a bit more about discounts and open market values when we come to deal with the effects of those parameters in later videos. Loan to value. This model assumes that you are financing your purchases with mortgages, and generally speaking a buy-to-let mortgage lender will advance you 75% of the valuation. You might get more, you might want to work with less. It's always a good idea to keep enough equity in your properties to cover yourself if anything does happen to go wrong. So you might decide you don't want to borrow 75%, you might want to stick to 50, but again, up to you. You can put your figures into this table and you can see the effect on the growth of your portfolio. Now the average inflation rate, this is purely and simply for internal use within the tool. It calculates your sourcing and refurb costs, which are the only ones likely to be affected by inflation. Your other buying costs, so your purchase legal costs or your refinance legal costs, and say they're quoted as a percentage of the purchase price or the valuation, and that obviously changes with time as the valuation changes with time. So there you go. Get stuck into your copy of this tool and check out the effects of changing the figures to what you think they ought to be or what you'd like to see them as.